Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. I had to glance over and be like, did I hit start recording? I did. Not much to really say this week. We're just anxiously awaiting Shadowbringers at this point. I record these on Sunday, so it's 12 days away. By the time you guys see these, it's 11 days away. And I need it. I need it now. I don't know what else to say. So I'm going to thank the Patreon sponsors, and we'll get to some questions over on YouTube, because I know that's the real reason why you click on the video. We have our sponsors over on Patreon who have been supporting the channel through hashtag demonetized. Apparently there's another adpocalypse going on, people were telling me. I actually didn't know, because it's they're either getting demonetized or they're not, so I'm not even ever really seeing stuff like that. So thanks for the patrons for doing it. It's completely optional. I'll make these videos regardless, but you guys are awesome. We got our Patrons of Light, and in 12 days, 11 for you guys, soon to be Patrons of Darkness, we got Khuja Cross on Jenova, and we got Kurenai Oni, both of which have been massive supporters. Appreciate them greatly. Appreciate everyone on the list, but these two have gone above and beyond. And we always give them the shout outs with little screenshots on the screen. So thank you. Thank you to both of you. But they're not the only ones we need to thank. We've got our long list of 3 tiers of sponsors. We have our standard sponsors first off. Edmund Dantes. We got Alondra Ellentil on Siren. Rav Mal of Cactuar. Alburio. Sana Arashiro of Brynhildr. Kromgar Holzborgson of Gilgamesh. Kevin Wabatalia. Alma Elma. Dark Lumina from Jenova. Marianne. Remedial Gaming. Sabo Empire. Mizra. Red Wings of the Baron FC from Zalera. Cidus, Oreo, and Shiva. Syd Hellwind of Gilgamesh. Afro Ninja from Malboro, Cheesecake from Leviathan, That Lane Weeb, Ashen Emiya of Cerberus, Fafarian, Rendil, Stevie-Rex, and Neon. We have our elite sponsors. We've got Kareth Jarrus of Adamantoise. We got Jananananan, Kazrin, Mika, Jay Gardner, Benjamin, Irish Rager, George, Batar Garl, Yufa Kenshi on Excalibur, Scumlord, Itsumi Amarillo of Gilgamesh, Ravik, Cardrakens from Fanfrit, Sigurd Drake from Balmung, Edgefair on Ultros, Jerica, Emma, Zernickborg 13, Chris Suzuki of Brynhildr, Crazy Meter from Midgar, Ryjabantanes from Cactuar, Carol, Serafina Edelise, Senchi, Shadowlink on Tonberry, Dom, Asuka Wake from Jenova, Lamilia Nella of Midgard-Sarmar, Sarah and the Fennel Family, Rynoet Yatia, Kifka and the Grey Eagles on Exodus, Kat Aoshi from Khuja, Rylanator Westaus The Purple Warrior, Magic Red Steel on Exodus, Lexxie Valentine, Mantaru the Rivivus FC from Zodiark, Sour Cream and Chives from Jenova, Rynoet Chikara, Gawish Valfor of Siren, Phoenix Down FC on Goblin, and Saren from Zodiark. Finally, we have our premium, our second highest tier, but just under those patrons of soon-to-be Darkness. We got Corson Safari from Brynhildr, Samael Astoriath of Excalibur, Inless 88, Illuria Melline, Noel, Sumbla, Nakunayame, Shana Senpai of Behemoth, Zoshime Hasha of Fanfrit, Beatriz, Kazuzu, Vapatiama of Diablos, Shadow Ari of Brynhildr, Zeravire of Corel, Alchemy, Shinka, Casual Heroes FC on Midgard-Sarmar, Tatachitaka on Hyperion, Kane Izuki from Jenova, Starla on Corel, Sothal, Sarah Frost from Behemoth, Holy Tabasco, Crass 015, Serenity FC on Ultros, Kat Kazuma, Ignis Fairgun from Excalibur, Valestra of Fanfrit, Not Quarters from Excalibur, Corvus Moonsguard, Private Mikey, Nana Kirisami, Rudy Rudiger, Kill Ackman, Wall Jr., and Kiltastic Jones. So thank you to everyone for contributing over on Patreon. But now we've got some questions to answer. Let's see what we got in the YouTube comment section this week. All right, question number 1. Question! Hey, guy. Hi, you. Hope you had a well-rested weekend. Honestly, I needed it, dude. The whole last week, I don't think I slept once. Finally, last night after Mel got back from E3, I finally got to sleep. So thank you. My question is, how come each of the media tours nobody reported or had any footage of Disciples of Hand or Land? Quite simply, they weren't available. It's basically just not something that was available for us to test, so we can't bring anything back if it's not there. Trust me, we look immediately to see, because obviously we want to bring back as much information as possible, but if it's not on the build, we can't do anything about it. I wonder, that might be deliberate. I wonder if they don't want people knowing stuff about crafters or gatherers specifically because it may affect the economy. Like, for example, if we were allowed to go on Disciples of Hand and we were going into those zones, would we be able to find, what items were available in the nodes, and where maybe there's ephemeral nodes or legendary nodes that they don't want us to know the timings of yet. They want us to discover it on launch. Crafters, seeing the new abilities gives people an idea of how to get their rotations and be more effective beforehand. And they probably just want a lot of that information because it is more sensitive to the economy than stuff like combat jobs. They might want to just keep it somewhat secret, or just not as public or spoken about in such detail. That makes sense to me, but no, it's just not available, so we can't provide it. All right, question number 2. Hi, Mr. Happy. Hello. Longtime viewer and player, 2013-14. You wore yellow glasses around. It's funny. I was just wearing these because I wrapped up stream and just decided to record, and what are the odds that there's a question where you actually reference? I still wear these things. But I wanted to ask, I know you did a video on this before about some quality of life changes between the beginning of the game and now that newer players might have no idea of, i.e. clicking the aetheryte from the map. I could have swore that was available like really early on, but I actually don't remember when that was incorporated. This comes off the back of the recent statement of the vibration functionality on controllers for when cues pop. TLDR, what's some quality of life changes that devs have made based on player feedback that newer players might be completely blind to? I mean, there's so many. Honestly, the pressure of naming them kind of makes it harder to remember them. The one that comes to mind the most is still cooldown resets on bosses. Like, you gotta remember, up until 3.4, if you died on a boss, you were waiting on that cooldown, before your next pull most of the time. And that's like a big change. That changed the landscape of raiding more than anything else they've ever done. If raids now are the same exact, like let's say Creator and everything that came after was the same difficulty it is now, but we didn't have cooldown resetting, Prog would just naturally take longer. Like, it would take days longer probably, just because we'd be sitting around waiting. Now, actually, there is a bit of a conversation to be had there, because what we used to do is we used to use that time to absorb the information from the previous pull. And so early on in encounters, like when you don't really know what all the mechanics do, it was actually a useful period of time. And then it became tedious after, you wanted to go for pulls that were kills. That's when it got frustrating. So actually, I don't know how much longer it would extend the duration of Prog. It certainly would. I don't know if it'd be days, but it'd be at least a day where it would be extended. But that's probably the biggest one, because I think it had the biggest impact on the raiding community as a whole. All right, next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, how you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. What is the most important UI change you feel SC can make in the game at this point, and why isn't it having hotbars change with combos as they do in PvP? I feel like there's no real reason to do. There's points to do it, and there's points not to do that. Rotating through your hotbar in PvE. PvE is not a dynamic experience, so having them separated in PvE is an attention to your actual dexterity and your ability to upkeep a rotation while doing boss mechanics. You don't know how many people, myself included from time to time, fumble around on our keyboard because we're trying to find the buttons while we're trying to do something that is the same every time. And for just some reason, that attempt, we couldn't keep our mental focus to the point where we could do it. Whereas in PvP, every situation is dynamic. They need it to be as simple as possible because they want you to be focusing on the situation and not the Jersey Shore character, and not, where are my buttons on my keyboard. It's just the added pressure of both is too much for PvP. And so it'll probably never happen for PvE. Now, there are certain consolidations that make sense to make that are, I guess, less important. For example, Verflare and Verholy now evolved from Verthunder and Verfire, as opposed Verthunder and Verfire, Verthunder and Verarrow, sorry, as opposed to being separate buttons altogether. Those are buttons you barely press, so it makes sense to consolidate those into buttons that you're already using fairly actively. Same with Dancer. A bunch of their basic combo skills, their two basic combo skills and their two basic proc skills off those single target combos are also their steps, because they're likely to be arranged in such a way that's convenient for the Dancer, and it's just a button that you only have to do every 30 seconds at the most, so it's not something that's super frequent. Combos, you're literally spam pressing, and there's a lack of stimulation of the senses when you're literally just pounding one button and occasionally pounding another button in between it, because there is not much of a demand for a situational awareness, at least not as much as PvP. I personally feel like the most important UI change is actually to, this was, I think, brought up on last week's episode, and now it is my opinion, that the way that the NPCs that display things like, totems and how you can spend those from various primals or ultimate encounters, savage books and normal mode currencies and tokens, those NPCs just look disastrous when you look at them from a UI standpoint. I'd rather have just a window open with all the things and different filters that you can then search for those things, as opposed to having these 12 menus pop up. Deltascape logs for Disciple of War, Disciple of Magic, other, Deltascape Savage data logs for this, and then Alphascape this. It's like 18 menus. It just looks terrible. So since somebody mentioned that to me, I now think that is the best UI upgrade they can make. As for seeing me at PAX West, the current plan is yes, but I've been trying to travel less this year, just because I want to put more money away because I basically, like, when I travel, it's a business expense, whatever, you know, it basically helps me at the end of the year with taxes, but I haven't put a lot of money away in regards to an eventual retirement. And with YouTube and Twitch, it's such an uncertain, I guess, career path, you know, to be someone who is someone who entertains, someone who informs. There's no telling when it could all go belly up. And so putting money away now has started to become more of a priority so that, you know, when I get to my later years in life, I can relax a little bit. You know, even if I could retire tomorrow, I'd probably still just do what I'm doing now because I enjoy doing it. I probably just wouldn't do it with as much vigor as I do it now. Because I probably do it with more because I'd be more relaxed in a sense. But yeah, that's because of that I haven't been traveling as much this year. So West is still looking like a thumbs up, but I'm not going to say anything for certain just yet. All right, on to the next one. Quite a bit of text in this one, but I saw the word Tressa, and I was like, I'm going to stop for this one. Hey, Mr. Happy, been around for a while, but this is my first question, so I have a bonus of Tressa saying, thank you. Oh, wait, now I got to, like, think of the way they did it at, was it AGDQ where they did the Tressa any percent? Where the dude in the back was just like, thank you! Just quoting her from the back of the friggin' venue. All right, after the media tour, I've seen people throw around the words homogenization and identity, but it's hard to pin people down on why homogenization is necessarily bad, or what identity really means. I also saw job identity always saw job identity as more of a style thing, both visual and play style. For example, I see Paladin as the Holy Knight that uses a sword, a shield, and spells, and Warrior's the Berserker with a giant axe that gets mad and smashes things. I see other people define job identity by function and place. For example, Paladin is the mitigation tank and Warrior is the HP tank. Worked so well for 2.0, I know. That's what I would have said if you didn't say it, so I'm glad you said it. Do you think these are both valid ways to define a job's identity? Do you think it's worth it somewhat to homogenize the tools that allow jobs to perform for the sake of allowing all jobs within the same role to be interchangeable so that people can choose the style they like most? Or do you think it's valuable for all tanks to have very different functions for the sake of being unique? I think it's entirely a preference thing. Because nobody feels good when the job they like playing is the job that nobody wants you to play. And at the same time, people who are playing jobs that are generally, I guess, no, there's so many situations, it's hard for me to even nail them down. So there's that one situation first, the person who wants to play a job because they like it stylistically and they like the way it performs, but other people don't find it up to par. But then when that job gets updated, you know, they get made more viable, do they also suffer some form of homogenization in the process? Does that person who enjoyed playing it now no longer enjoy playing it because it's too much like the other tanks that they didn't like playing before, even though stylistically it still has a different means of accessing its power, even if it can accomplish a lot of the same things? Then also, do the people who were playing the jobs that were performing well, that were desired, are they now less interested in those jobs because they're not this clearly desired job anymore? Or do they feel that it's because of the homogenization? Was it really never about the way the job functioned or the way the job looked or the way the job performed to them? Was always just about, you know, highest efficiency? Basically what I'm saying is people have opinions, and that the bigger problem is nobody fucking cares about anyone else's opinion. I mean, I like to take other people's opinions into consideration. That's why a lot of these questions get fairly long-winded, because I don't just say, I can say how I feel and I can say how others might feel. And I can disagree with them and they can disagree with me, and that's great. But what ends up happening is you get into these massive circle jerks online about why something is wrong or why someone is dumb or why something is correct. And you literally, that's why they're called circle jerks, because it's two different people with two different ideals talking to each other in such a way that no progress is ever made, and they're stuck in this loop that's accomplishing absolutely nothing. It's also because you're literally reaching around and jerking the other. You know what? That actually doesn't make sense. Why would the person who disagrees with the other person do a reach around? And anyway, moving on. The bottom line is neither way is invalid, but to some people, one way is going to be an invalid opinion. And that's just the way it is. I'm of the opinion that all jobs should be able to feel good about performing in content and be within a certain percentage threshold. What they bring to the party, I sure do like for there to be some variance in it, but there needs to be variance within a certain window. Otherwise, you go into people refusing to bring jobs because they don't actually accomplish any set goal, and they don't consider any sort of external things such as player skill. They literally look at job and go, don't care how good you are, don't want to play with this job, even if the player who they're talking about in question is actually better than them. So there's all sorts of elements that go into this, and the ultimate answer is it's up to every individual, and you'll never convince them otherwise, and no one will ever convince you of your opinion otherwise, and back and forth and so on, and forever, and the internet hates each other. All right, on to the next one. Hey, Haps, how you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. A couple of questions. So, whilst you enjoy these cookies, for you, whilst you wuxed? I don't know what wuxed is, but I'll take cookies. One, after learning about Absolute Virtue, that he was going to be in the Baldessian Arsenal, I watched your Best Jerry video on AV. My question is, was the pre-nerfed AV strat ever worked out? And was he defeated legitimately before he was nerfed? So, Square Enix released an official video that detailed how to defeat him, how to lower his regen, how to cancel out his 2-hour abilities. Now, they never explicitly say those things, but that is what the video implies, and that's how people interpreted it and how it ended up working. Now, in regards to was it ever defeated, there were a lot of glitches that were used to defeat AV, and I recall several groups also defeating him by him simply just glitching out for no apparent reason. Like, nobody tried to force him to react in a certain way, and he would just go on to only auto-attacking and sometimes casting a spell, and not even using his TP abilities, but also not using any of his 2 hours. There's a ton of reported things, and whether they be glitches, or bugs, or exploits, or whatever, in regards to him before he was nerfed down to that 2-hour time limit shared with Jailer of Love. I had heard reports of one group defeating him legitimately after the 2-hour mark had actually been achieved without using any glitches or exploits, but I did actually hear that group was a North American group, and they actually had to use a third-party program to predictively see what ability AV... So basically, when you use a 2-hour skill in Final Fantasy XI, it would do the smoke around the boss, but it would take like 2 or 3 seconds before it said what the ability was in the chat. So, but however, on server side, it was already determined. So what they had third-party programs that would read the server side note when the swirl started happening and immediately activate anyone who had that 2-hour to immediately activate it. So that way they could actually do it, because between the latency of the Japanese servers, because all the 11 servers were in Japan, coming to North America, plus the game's natural systems, it was almost impossible to do it without a third-party program. So that's how I remember hearing about it. I don't know the legitimacy to that claim, but that's all I can really share, because I don't know anything else. And 2, after your Eureka experience, do you see SE making any changes to any open-world exploration areas they may add, i.e. what success and failures of Eureka? No, everything involving Eureka is going to stay in exploration zones. They're not going to bring almost any of that stuff to the open world itself. So, yeah, that's my answer. It's an easy answer. All right, this question says that they asked last week and I missed it. So let me see. Hey, Hap, re-asking my question from last week. All right, let's see what it was. My question is regarding Eggy Glamour. Oh, maybe that's why I skipped it. Maybe I've answered this a million times. Let's find out. With the continued lack of news on further Eggy Glamour and the existing system just being a text command, do you think they're still actively working on it? Yeah, they've said they're actively working on it. In fact, I think they gave a time frame of 5.1 at the earliest. Now, I'll say this, saying anything is coming at the earliest is not a very ensuring way of making people sure that you're still working on it. But they say they're working on it. They say that it's at least in their development window. We just don't know anything else about it. I have a feeling the reason it's taking so long is because they want to release it as like an en masse thing, and it's just not come as a priority compared to a lot of other quality of life things, because they probably are trying to get a UI team. The only reason why there even is probably the Demi Bahamut command now is because it was so vastly asked for, and the text command to change it was the easiest way they could incorporate it. In fact, same with all of the carbuncles. There's no UI elements at all to do this. That's why it's a text command. So you have to assume that the UI team is being pulled to do what are considered more important tasks across the entire game, and that actually creating an UI for Eggy Glamour has just not been a priority compared to a lot of the other things they've been doing. And we finally gotten to see a lot of that going into Shadowbringers since the most recent live letter. So they are working on it. What they're working on precisely, how many Eggy Glamours, any UI, we don't know any of that. But my guess would be that the UI team has just been working on more important systems, and that's why it's taken so long. All right, on to the next one. Hi, Mr. Happy. Hope you're having a good day and are ready for Shadowbringers launch. As ready as I'll ever be. Do you think level 70 ultimates will still be clearable with job changes? My group is currently cleaning up ads in UCOB and probably won't clear until after Shadowbringers launches. But with changes like No More Protect, healer changes, and some jobs not feeling complete at 70, will things like Mornafaz still be survivable, or the golden DPS check be harder? Thanks for taking the time to read this. Long time fan. No, so those things are forgivable enough in the current landscape that you should be fine. There should be no reason why you can't accomplish those things. I looked at a lot of the level 70 to 80 abilities, and while those jobs certainly feel the most complete at 80, there's only a couple of jobs that I feel like lost major identities at level 70. Like when I look at Red Mage from up to 70, they're essentially the same. That's one of the most, clean jobs for progressing any fight. Black Mage, similar. In fact, Black Mage got some changes that'll help them pre-level 70 to be even more effective in situations like that. Tanks not having to do tank stance, always having that innate 20%, so your tank damage should theoretically always be lower than it was before because you almost never use tank stance for anything. As such, even though healers will have simpler rotations, they'll still be pumping out as many global cooldowns as they were before, which will still contribute plenty to the DPS there. Protect, not a concern about that at all, as well as accessories. I've seen other people. In fact, I think there was a question I scrolled past that I didn't take because it was similar to another one in regards to vitality on accessories, which I've answered a couple times in the last few weeks. I don't think that'll be an issue either. I think there's some more spammable defensive tools for some jobs. I don't think it'll be a concern. After looking at a lot of the abilities, I think only 1 or 2 jobs are really going to feel like, oh my god, at 70, can't do it. But it looks to feel more like playing a job at 50 versus playing it at 60, like when Heavensward launched. And now I'd compare 50 to 60 to 70 and 80, whereas 60 to 70 was a massive difference. Jobs always felt more complete at the higher level range, but it was a whole nother level jumping from 60 to 70 for a lot of jobs, in my opinion. And the next one, I feel like I saw this on the previous one, but this person didn't say they were re-asking. I don't know, I just feel like I've read it before, probably because I see a specific word that I'm sure I've read a million times over. Hey, Mr. Happy, been listening to you for years now, and first time asking. People are labeling Shadowbringers as casual bringers, because as you answered in this video, they are making the jobs easier. Yeah, see, I feel like I read this and then decided it was lugged in with another question too closely, and I kind of feel the same way now, but I'm already reading it, so. Such as Monk not needing to weave as much. My question is this: do you feel that being more casual friendly will open up the game? I'm surprised that the question didn't go into the direction of do you feel that way, because that's how a lot of people have phrased that question in the past, and I think it will. So here's the thing. There's a difference between being casual and being casual friendly. It doesn't matter how casual friendly you make a game. Someone who is not as dedicated, doesn't have the time, doesn't have the skill, whatever the reason may be, and there's various reasons across different players, they will never clear the hardest content. It doesn't matter what you do to the game. In fact, we closed on this kind of statement last week, where you could literally make every job literally 1 or 2 buttons, and there would still be people who can't do those fights, because that's just not in their skill repertoire, I suppose. And that's why... will it open up to new players? Yeah, that's kind of the most important thing for the health of a game. People complain a little bit about how a lot of it, how World of Warcraft has kind of done that over the years, but those aren't the key reasons why we're seeing this like WoW refugee move over and things like that. Though that isn't the core reason behind the issue there. The core reason was core design decisions made in World of Warcraft. People didn't agree with the looting system. They didn't agree with the reward structure. They didn't agree with the way that certain features were implemented or released, or the means through which, or the time frame in which. It's decisions like that. It's not because the jobs are more approachable. It's not because the combat classes are more pro. It's like, oh no, they're more approachable. They may feel like they're not as rewarding as they were in the past, and that can be a concern eventually. We've seen scholars definitely expressing that big time, and we've also seen that Final Fantasy XIV's developers are very regularly able to rectify that to at least a meaningful degree. It's a matter of the time frame that it actually takes to do it. So yeah, it should open it up to new players, and it should make new players a little bit more confident to push to the next thing and maybe improve themselves a little bit. There are people who just see certain things and they're so intimidated they never take the next step to get better. They want to, but they're intimidated by it. And we can actually see that this will probably improve that overall. Again, as we stated last week, and I think this is the one that says it, that will always be a factor. That being said, it doesn't need to be the only thing that determines whether or not somebody can, work their way into the next piece of content. All right, next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, as a WoW refugee, your content has been invaluable. So thank you. Thank you for watching it, and thank you for the kind words. I'm an older guy with arthritis in my hands. APM for jobs makes a big difference in playability. People have ranked them on Reddit, and I've leveled most jobs to 70, so I have a pretty good idea of how high Bard and Monk are compared to the rest. but I saw quite a few changes to abilities, procs, and off GCDs. Is Bard still as crazy as it is currently? Where does Dancer rank? And I'd like your overall thoughts on how the jobs felt APM-wise when you played them in the Media Tour. I'm always of the opinion that tanks and healers are the lowest APM on average. It depends on which one. Dark Knight and Gunbreaker are definitely a higher APM, I feel, than Warrior and Paladin. And then you'd, for healers, Astro was and is still generally a higher APM healer than the other ones, although Scholar would definitely be up for that as well. As for Bard, no, I don't think Bard was any more or less, because most of their updates just took things that were like a little tedious about their job design before, and I guess made it so it's easier to navigate them, like Barrage giving you a Refulgent Arrow proc, Imperial Arrow being changed from a weapon skill to an ability. Things like that were just changed around in such a way that it should feel almost exactly the same as it did before. There's a couple things I'd like to see them still make adjustments to Bard-wise, and I know a bunch of other Bards have said this. Adding charges to Bloodletter, so if you get a proc while you already have it, at least it charges up to 2, in case you're in the middle of, working on other parts of your rotation, and it's just not going to happen. It would also just make for more interesting opener and things like that, but Bard should feel mostly the same. I think Dancer is going to be... I think all 3 of the range physical are actually fairly high APM. Machinist, because they get the reduced global cooldown during their overheat so frequently when they're using Heat Blast. Dancer is naturally a very, very high APM job, just from the way it's designed. It's actually insane. It's why I'm going to be playing it. And Bard's about the same. So as for the rest, man, I don't know. Dragoon felt about the same. Monk felt lower APM. Definitely lower APM without the Tornado Kick rotation. Samurai about the same, I guess I'd say. Ninja, God, I don't even know. Ninja might be higher than it was before. I'd need to sit down and watch the footage in front of me again, but it was intense. It was intense. Red Mage about the same, Black Mage about the same, but with more options. Summoner probably a little less. That one was probably a little better. And is that all of them? I think it is. I think I just named every job. So yeah, that's, I guess, take whatever I just said, because I don't even remember already, and that's how I feel. Alright, I just realized that this recording went on a little longer than I'd like to have them going lately, so I'm actually going to do just this last question, I think. There actually were some other ones that I wanted to get to, but hopefully those people re-ask them next week and I see them and, I'm able to actually get to them. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey there, Mr. Man. Console-related question this time. If it's console-related to 14, I don't know how much use I'll be in. Maybe I'll take another question after this. Do you enjoy trophy hunting on the PS4? Do you have any thoughts about people who buy games only depending on the easiness of the trophies? Also, how many platinums do you have? It's actually a question I've never gotten before. I love achievement hunting, whether it be Xbox achievements, Steam achievements, PS4 trophies. I like knowing I've squeezed every ounce of something out of a game. And then there's some games that don't even have trophies all the way. I think anyone should, if someone wants to buy a game because it's easy trophies and they want to build their profile, why not? I mean, there's plenty of people who have, hundreds of thousands, if not, 1 or 2 million points on Xbox. And I don't think any more or less of them. They're just enjoying games the way they enjoy it the most. If they want to buy a $6 game that's got easy gamer score, or someone wants to do the same on PlayStation 4 for trophies, go right ahead. What am I to tell you whether or not you should be enjoying games just for achievements or just for trophies? I think it can be awesome, and I love doing it. Although I like games that actually have a lot of trophies that will take me a while. Like Devil May Cry 5 doing, getting S ranks on every single mission. Octopath is actually at a level I probably won't get every achievement on Steam, because analyze every enemy in the game is ridiculous. Collect every item is a missable achievement, and collect every treasure chest also missable, but also I just haven't found a complete list of treasure chests online. I've had to contribute a little bit to some of the lists that I've seen online because they're just incomplete, and I've found chests that aren't in those. So, well, yeah, I just, go crazy. Enjoy games the way you want to enjoy them. Y'all good. Y'all good. But that's going to be the last question, and I feel really bad about that because there are some more pretty good questions here. If I scroll down, it even loads more. There's so many. I can never do it. I got to do a super episode at some point where I just go nuts. Everything and anything is getting answered except for ones that are really weird, and there's at least 1 or 2 really weird ones in this comment section. If you go and look at last week's episode, I'm sure you'll find some that are there that you can understand why I might not take them. But anyway, thank you everyone for asking your questions for this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. If you have questions, ask them in the comment section of the video below. And again, apologies, there's so many questions, it's hard to get to all of them. So hopefully I'm able to get to a better variety of them next week. 2 weeks from now, by the way, will be the Monday after Shadowbringers comes out. I may not do a Mondays with Mr. Happy on July 1st because I'm going to be going ham that weekend. If I do it, it's going to be a one-taker and it's going to be on the live stream. So I can't guarantee that I'm going to do Mondays with Mr. Happy on the Monday after Shadowbringers goes into early access. So just letting you guys know now. Thank you again to our Patreon sponsors. Thank you again to all the new ones, our patrons of light, soon to be darkness, and all of you have been awesome as we've been gearing up for Shadowbringers. So I really appreciate it. I will see all of you in the next video. And until then, take care.